here's another officer who didn't do some reports that he was supposed to do. And he was recommended for a 3-day suspension, white police officer, and it was reduced down to a 1-day suspension. Here's another officer who sprayed a handcuffed prisoner with OC spray, and he was charged with department reports. Okay, they only charged him. They didn't charge him with spraying the person. They just charged him with not making a report about it. And 3-day suspension for him was reduced down to 1 day. And now we get to...
Now, who makes the reduction of the recommendations? The chief?
Well, the chief is the top dog in the police department.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the sergeants, they can make a charge. It will go to internal, on up through the chain of command and end up in internal affairs. Internal affairs does an investigation in this department. And then they have a disciplinary committee that they allow to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And the disciplinary committee is comprised of about five or six officers. They look at the charges, they evaluate, and then they make a recommendation as to what ought to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Officer Calloway's position, you know, in a 9-day suspension thing that he received for arresting the wrong white woman, which was a woman named Vanessa Schaefer, and she must be kin to somebody very important in this area, because when Officer Calloway arrested her, he took her to jail. She was found guilty on all of the charges that Officer Calloway charged her with. But she filed a complaint against Officer Calloway. Officer Calloway ended up with about 6 charges out of that by the police department. And interesting, on this review committee...
But she was found guilty of the charges he was arrested?
In court.
Yeah.
She certainly was. But he was guilty too, because he had arrested... See, that's almost like 65. I doubt if black police officers in Selma could even arrest white folks back in 1965. You know, and so we end up here in 2008, and Officer Calloway wasn't to dare arrest this woman. But anyhow, it was one black person, Vicki Red, that was on that committee. And Vicki Red recommended, I think, about transferring him from traffic to another location. All the other officers on there was interested in the chief coming down hard on Calloway for that, and that's from 3 to 9-day suspension. And he ended up with a 9-day suspension for doing the job based on the vested authority that he has as a police officer on Schaefer, but yet he got not fired that time. But you know, in my heart as a police officer and a police chief, I can just hear the good old boys back in the room saying, well, we can't fire him for this now, because it will look like we don't want him arresting white women. What we need to do is, you all just keep check on him, and when you get him on something else, I'll zap it. Well, Officer Calloway made the unfortunate mistake of talking to Tracy Brazee one day. She's a lieutenant, and he told her something about a rumor he had heard. And she took him to the compliance office, and she took it back to her friends to see if he really said that. And then this got into internal affairs, and one of those Negroes up in internal affairs decided that Master needed an opportunity, and so he made a case. And then all of a sudden, we've got a well-vetted, we have a well-trained, we have a totally dedicated black police officer with honors being fired by Chief Burns because of a rumor that Tracy Brazee said that he said. And when we looked at the document that he allegedly signed, it's obvious to a blind man that it wasn't his signature on the letter.
Okay.
And through his appeal, all the way through the mayor, we didn't get no justice, so we've taken it to federal court.
Now let's rewind for a second. Now you mentioned earlier that one person on that original disciplinary committee was Vicki Red,
Right.
who recommended that he be moved to another area.
Right.
She is no longer with the police department.
Oh no, Vicki Red was fired, you know, as if she was an unwanted stepchild. She took off from the police department because both of her sons needed surgery. And she took family leave, which is about, what, 6 weeks or something like that?
12 weeks.
And Vicki Red was fired from the police department without even a hearing. You know,
And this is a black female.
That's right.
Because I think
black
it's
female. And see what's disturbed me about that. The environment in this police department is so hostile until Vicki Red was afraid to appeal her case.